President Cyril Ramaphosa officially appointing Judge Raymond Zondo to the Chief Justice position. That happened just some 12 hours ago. And it comes amid a lot of criticism that this is a week after the third volume of the State Capture Report was released. Ramaphosa essentially dodging a bullet after the Commission made no findings against him. He appeared before the Commission to answer questions around his CR17 campaign. To unpack this further, we're joined now by constitutional law expert Cathy Powell and political analyst Levy Ndou. Both of you, thank you very much for your time this Friday. Cathy, I want to begin with you this morning to talk about, whether there is a bit of disappointment. I understand that people had gone so far as to congratulate Justice Mandisa Maya following that recommendation by the JSC.
Yes, they did, but it was premature because the Constitution makes clear that the President is not bound by the recommendation of the JSC. The President makes his decision after consulting the JSC, but not in consultation with.
Cathy, I'm going to ask you to stand by while we try and sort out what appears to be a bit of an issue with the sound we're getting from your side. So let's go to Levy Ndou, political analyst. Levy, Cathy's talking about, first of all, the contentious interviews held by the JSC, and then that overreach when it recommended a candidate in Justice Mandisa Maya.
Good morning, Cathy. Good morning to the listeners at home. I think one should note the fact that when the Chief Justice has to be appointed, there are processes that are supposed to be followed. And these processes have got a very clear framework. It is very important as well that we need to talk about the transformation agenda of the South African state institutions and the society in general. But also at the same time, when we do so, we do that having to acknowledge the systems and processes that are established in society. One would not be surprised when there was a celebration and an expectation that a female would be appointed. But I think also at the same time, the established institutions or processes might have also played a role in disadvantaging or working against the transformation agenda in society. Because indeed, if there is an overreach of the commission, it would have appeared as if they were trying to put pressure on the president to go for this candidate or not for the other candidate. Mm-hmm. And that, for me, might have influenced those who advised the president to say, you don't have to be pressurized to perform your own constitutional obligation or responsibility. Because remember, the president himself has the final say in terms of the appointment of the JSC. And also at the same time, the president still had to consult with the different political parties and the society in general. Remember, ordinary members of society also participated in the nomination process. So the president has had to consult very broadly. But equally so, the trend has been established wherein the deputy chief justice would then have to take over. It might not be a legal thing, but this trend has been there. And if someone has occupied a position like Justice Zondo, who has been the deputy and now acting in that position, you would also require continuity and the experience of the person that is in the office. But also equally, Zondo in that position does not seem to be going to stay for quite longer. And that also paves a very good way for Maya to occupy the same position.
Cathy, let's bring you into the discussion and talk about the job at hand. It is, in many ways, an administrative position insofar as leading the judiciary is concerned. But it's also the top legal mind, isn't it, in terms of heading up the Constitutional Court. Justice Zondo, he's been a judge of the Constitutional Court since 2012. He was appointed as Deputy Chief Justice in 2017. And as Levy says, he's also been acting in the position of Chief Justice since at least October of last year. Is he better placed, given this kind of experience, to now head up the Constitutional Court full-time?
He knows how the Constitutional Court works better than, for example, Judge Meyer does. There's no doubt of that, because she's only had a short acting stint on the Constitutional Court. He's not necessarily better as an administrator. I think that administrative skills are pretty transferable, and that is one of the things that Judge Meyer has been credited with at the SCA. So getting the whole operation running smoothly. She was also the one who handled moving the SCA onto digital court hearings when COVID hit. So that's actually one of her bright stars, is her administrative capacity. And by contrast, Judge Zondo has actually had several question marks raised over his administration, particularly when he was head of the Labour Appeal Court. So he knows the surroundings better. Whether he can operate them better or steer them better is another matter.
Let me ask you this, Cathy. Were you disappointed by that announcement that was made by the President yesterday?
No, I wasn't. I was a little surprised, but I knew that he'd been placed in a cleft fork by the JSC's recommendation of one specific person, particularly as it had interviewed her so badly.
Yeah.
So I think that, and this is what Levy also suggested, what Ramaphosa might have done is to put the somebody in place who's well positioned, indeed they all were, but knows the place best, has already been acting as Chief Justice, but will only be there for about 2.5 years, and then say that Judge Meyer will be Deputy Chief Justice. That doesn't, in fact, automatically make her the next Chief Justice, because I recall Levy referred to the trend of having the Deputy Chief Justice take over. Remember that we've had that once or twice, but the last 2 Chief Justices had not been the Deputy Chief Justice, because there was this determined effort to overleap Moseneke. So it is understandable, and it is appropriate that the deputy should become the Chief Justice, but actually it's not the current fashion in South Africa with the Constitutional Court.
Levy, let's talk about the criticism that the President has received in the wake of this decision. Firstly, around, some of his critics saying that he effectively dodged a bullet after the Commission, in releasing the third part of the State Capture Inquiry report, made no findings against him, and that this was some kind of reward for Deputy Chief Justice, Acting Chief Justice, now Justice Designate Raymond Zondo. What do you make of that kind of criticism? And then, of course, there's the obvious one, that he missed an opportunity here to appoint the country's first woman Chief Justice.
Well, we are a very broad society in South Africa, and we have got different political parties that are participating in our constitutional democracy. And whether we like it or not, it is not everything that leaders would decide that will be supported by everyone. Ramaphosa appears to have opened the processes for all of us to participate, and looking at the different sectors of society that Ramaphosa have consulted, the process was quite open. But there is something that we seem to forget, which is that Ramaphosa is a politician, and he lives in a political environment. And it is not easy for the decisions that you take to be accepted by everybody. And of course, you'd have others who would prefer this one or the other. And that is why the candidates were for. And it was not going to happen that will have all of them being appointed. One is to be appointed and the other one not to be appointed, based on the fact that, of course, there are preferences. I fully understand people who are saying that this should be an opportunity for Ramaphosa to portray his position or stand in relation to the empowerment of women in society. But he had to make his own considerations, having consulted broadly
Right.
You might also, the position might be that maybe a lot of people that he consulted actually favored Justice Zondo. But also at the same time, consultation does not necessarily mean that you take what you get from everybody, because the views that come will totally be different. So that is what we have in a political environment where you have got different parties, people will differ, but at the end of the day, what is central is that leaders must take decisions, and this is exactly what Ramaphosa did.
Levy Ndou, let me thank you for your time this morning. You as well, Cathy Powell, constitutional law expert. To both of our guests, we appreciate your time so early on a Friday morning. Some analysis for you there around the appointment of Justice Raymond Zondo as the country's next Chief Justice.